What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it's no secret that Nintendo is not a fan of emulators, and now it looks like they're going after the biggest Switch emulator online, and we're going to go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about some bad news coming out of Sony with major layoffs being announced, game cancellations, and even a full studio being closed down. And then we're going to be going over that Pokemon Presents, and all the announcements were there, which does include one that is basically the only thing people are talking about coming out of it. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members do get Newswave early and ad-free. If you want to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today actually with a comment from a member, Geoland1, who pointed something out to me. And I thought it was interesting, more for the nostalgia side when it comes to mobile gaming way back in the day on iOS, actually more than a decade ago with Infinity Blade. Well, that had disappeared years ago, and now it's actually back as a port to PC. Yeah, this is up over on archive.org and also being linked to here through Reddit, which you can see it is fully ported to PC, Linux, and Mac OS with Wine, and even on Steam Deck with Proton. The port features upgraded textures, graphics, and various optimizations for PC such as keybinds, auto sliders, file management, and more. That's really impressive, even though I was never into Infinity Blade. I remember seeing it advertised quite a bit, and people did talk about it a lot back then, as it was a mobile game that didn't necessarily feel like a mobile game at that time, and technically now, looking around at just mobile games in general, still doesn't really fit in with them. So really cool though for people who have some of that nostalgia, or maybe we're just curious about it, can try it out now on PC. The full port is available online, and if anything else, it's good to have something like that preserved because it was definitely in flux, being put up on different storefronts and then pulled down pretty quick. Also, it looks like we have another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, a beat-em-up game that's coming out here in a couple of months. This one I'm unsure of exactly, and hopefully one of you can let me know if you played this one in the arcades, and we can see the trailer here. This is for TMNT Arcade Wrath of the Mutants. Now, they just say it's coming to all consoles and PC. This happening April 23rd, going for the price of $29.99. It is being published by Game Mill. It is developed by Cradle Games and Raw Thrills, so I'm not really sure how good this game is. It is 4-player co-op, and it looks fine. I feel like I've seen this arcade cabinet, though, at like a Dave & Buster's or something, so I'm wondering if this is kind of designed in that sense of, all right, these are going to be quick play sessions, you'll get some tickets if you do well, but it's all designed kind of to just keep getting your credits from you, and right? So will they be able to maybe morph it a bit, mold it to that home console and PC experience? That we'll see, but I guess it is still fun to have a game like this that was really before just relegated to arcades, at least being more available, this on consoles and PC again, coming up in a couple of months. Oh, and out of nowhere, Sony decided to release a system update for the PlayStation 3, which this is over on their official support page, and this is System Software Update 4.91, released on February 27th, 2024. You do need a minimum of 200 megabytes of free space on either your PS3 hard disk drive or movable storage. Now, what does it do? The system software update improves system performance, and that's really it. I mean, that was the same thing for 4.90, which, I mean, a lot of people in the homebrew community looked at this and said, okay, Sony, what exactly did you change here to mess everything up for us? And I mean, I guess it could be something like that. Really, it could have been just some sort of bug exploit or something else that was found that may also have an effect when it comes to modifying and running custom firmware. I just don't know if Sony cares that much about the PS3 anymore to try to go in, rewrite stuff, and try to block off all the people who are hacking their PlayStation 3 system. Seems like Sony has other things to really worry about currently. This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. With the new year now underway, I thought about setting some goals, since we all like to at least come up with different resolutions and see just how long we can stick to them. In this case, though, it was more about being overly stressed out with the day-to-day, whether it's the family or business, and it's something I wanted to work on. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier and is much less intimidating. Speaking with a therapist can help with stress management, and I'll admit, the session being a phone call, a video chat, or just messaging makes the entire process much more comfortable, and even being able to schedule therapy sessions is super convenient. Join over 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. Click the link in the description or visit visit betterhelp.com/spawnwave. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire, and BetterHelp will match you with one of over 30,000 therapists in their network based on your needs, preferences, and location. And in most cases, you'll be matched with a therapist within 48 hours. Oh, and get this, if you feel that your therapist isn't a good match for you, you can switch therapists with just the press of a button in your settings at no additional cost. Clicking the link below helps support this channel, and it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo taking on Yuzu, which is a very popular Switch emulator. Now, this was pointed out online by Steven Totillo, and he also did link to the full 41-page document and filing that Nintendo had in Rhode Island, which I am going to be citing here and there because I did go through it, and I was curious what exactly Nintendo is trying to do here. Like, what's their case? Because I feel like we've been through this before with emulators, and we've basically come to the determination that an emulator as it stands is legal. However, there are other things that go around the emulator that it seems like Nintendo is attempting to hone in on here, and there are a couple of very surprising statistics that they decided to share with us. So we'll just kind of scroll through some of the filings here that they had, but the big one that people were taking away from this is, of course, when The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom leaked online. It broke street date, somebody dumped it on the internet, and then of course it started to make the rounds. Nintendo was saying it was downloaded more than 1 million times before the game officially released, and then on top of that, an additional 1 million downloads were attempted. So I guess failed halfway through, or there were another million or so connections, maybe to a torrent or something they were tracking. That's really what Nintendo seemed to get pushed over the edge with, was, okay, this is getting a bit more out of hand than we thought it would. So now I guess they have to go forward with this lawsuit and try to take down Yuzu. That is their end goal, is to have Yuzu completely stripped of the internet, no more distribution, no more development, and then they'll probably try to have a hefty amount of money, a fine, slapped on top of them by the court here. Anyway, they do even cite spoilers being spread ahead of the release. They had funny images in there of just tweets of people saying, well, I guess I'll have to mute these keywords, and oh, I can't believe it's interesting that they're pointing to spoilers in a court case. Anyway, they do say that emulators are tools to unlawfully play pirated games, which is one way to define an emulator. They also don't seem to really like anyone hacking their Switch or dumping their own games. They say basically all of that is illegal. They do point out Yuzu Patreon averaged $30,000 a month, and the paid Android app grossed an additional $50,000. And then they do imply that Zelda release, so that when the ROM got out there early, really boosted their Patreon numbers. They say by double. So that, along with The Legend of Zelda, Nintendo is trying to build this case that because Yuzu exists, something like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is easier to play ahead of release and is much more appealing to download. But the emulator itself is not at all what Nintendo seems to be going after here, because I feel like Nintendo understands that the emulator being open source and you can just look at it and say, okay, none of our copywritten code or anything is in there. They're going at things all around the emulator. For example, when it comes to encryption of their games, they're citing these product keys being essentially pulled from actual Switch systems through means that would circumvent and break DMCA. And in fact, the steps are directly on Yuzu's website, and they kind of walk you through doing that, and then also provide tools that Nintendo's already looked at and said, this isn't going to fly with us. So again, they're kind of in proximity to the emulator. They're going after just Yuzu and the company, or the people behind Yuzu in general. I mean, they even went as far as to cite Discord messages that were being shared in I guess, the Yuzu Discord. So Nintendo was staked out in their Discord at one point, and Nintendo says on information and belief that Yuzu devs play pre-release games or pirated games to get them running so quickly on release day. So when a game comes out and all of a sudden it runs perfectly, wow, that's interesting, is kind of Nintendo implying that they are also participating in downloading these games illegally to make that happen and then raise more money on their Patreon. Now, I don't think this is as cut and dry of, oh, Nintendo has no case here at all, and they're just trying to bury the Yuzu team in legal fees. And while I do think that is part of their strategy, sure, I feel like Yuzu has at least been making enough money at this time to at least put up some sort of defense. But some of the stuff Nintendo is pointing out here when it comes to encryption of their games, then decrypting them with these product keys, and Yuzu's team kind of showing you how to go about doing all of that, I don't think that's going to be slapped down immediately in court by a judge. I kind of feel like Nintendo, with the amount of time that they clearly have spent building this case, has done it in a certain way that may actually appeal to a judge in the court. So this is going to be a case that will be very, very interesting to follow along with, because I think one way or the other, it will definitely change maybe the path forward for emulation. So if Nintendo loses, well, to me, that opens things up a bit more for emulators, as they'd be able to cite precedent here. Whereas on the other side, if Yuzu loses, it's gone completely. That's one thing, obviously, from the emulation space. But then other emulators are going to look at this and go, well, I don't want any part of that. And they would probably look to shut down prematurely. So this is going to be something to follow. It's going to take a while. The legal system isn't exactly fast. So we'll just see if we have any updates going forward, especially from the Yuzu team themselves. Next up, let's talk about Sony with some unfortunate news that, once again, more layoffs. We just talked about layoffs yesterday with Supermassive. And as that video went out, more layoffs were announced, this time from Sony. And this is quite a number. So they do this thing where they dress it up with percentages and they try to, okay, it's a single digit percentage. That won't look as bad. But then they put it next to the actual number and you go, whoa, okay, that's more than you were trying to paint it there originally. So we have Jim Ryan and Herman Holst presenting this information. So let's take a look here. This is posted up over on their official site, saying we have made the extremely hard decision to announce our plan to commence a reduction of our overall headcount globally by about 8%, or about 900 people. Subject to local law and consultation process, employees across the globe, including our studios, are impacted. Now, this was from Jim Ryan, and this is a strange situation here, because Jim Ryan was just in a picture that was posted up online 5 days ago with some of the employees from London Studios. Well, the studio that was shut down was London Studio. So he was, I guess, there, and he knew they were getting shut down, and I guess as part of his retirement tour. Not a great look for Jim Ryan there. Anyway, moving on to Herman Holst, head of PlayStation Studios, who had a bit more information here for us, saying the US-based studios and groups impacted by a reduction in workforce are Insomniac Games, Naughty Dog, as well as our technology, creative, and support teams. In UK and European-based studios, it is proposed that PlayStation Studios' London studio will close in its entirety, that there will be reductions in Guerrilla and Firesprite. Now, London Studio, if you're unaware, they've been around for a long time. They even did like The Getaway back in the day, but they've worked on things like iToy, SingStar. They did at least put an effort forward for VR with PlayStation VR Worlds, and Blood and Truth, which was actually a good game on the PlayStation VR. They never brought it up to PSVR 2, and unfortunately, it seems like London Studios' turn into VR may have been an issue here for Sony, since they're clearly moving away. It feels like moving away from PSVR 2 right now. So, yeah, unfortunate stuff there for London Studios, though. But Herman Holst said exactly what we all figured here. And why they have to do this. Say, delivering the immersive, narrative-driven stories that PlayStation Studios is known for at the quality bar that we aspire to requires a reevaluation of how we operate. We looked at our studios and our portfolio, evaluating projects in various stages of development, and have decided that some of these projects will not move forward. He's essentially saying these games are becoming too expensive to make, and we have to cut costs somewhere. And these studios, or these companies, when it comes down to it, the thing they can control the easiest is their workforce. So in this instance, they're going to cut down 8% of their overall workforce and their overall payroll expense. Now, they did mention some canceled projects as well. The obvious one here would be London Studios, as they did have a fantasy co-op game that they shared some concept art for like last year. But then also, apparently, according to Jason Schreier, Twisted Metal from Firesprite that's been canceled. In fact, that was in early development. It wasn't even greenlit completely, so we must have found out about that when they were writing it out on a napkin somewhere. So I feel like we heard about that a long time ago now, and it is odd that Twisted Metal got canceled, considering it seemed like the series did better than Sony was anticipating. It looks like they're going forward with it, but here we are now with 900 people being laid off at PlayStation, and we saw their slimming profit margins. And again, when you're a company that size and you have to look around and realize things are going to continue to get more and more expensive when it comes to the development of these games, as it just keeps going up and up and up and up, well, they have to cut costs somewhere, and unfortunately it ends up being the people who are making these games in the first place. And I see people talk about the idea of there being some sort of crash for the video game industry, and I don't know if we're in it yet, but it does kind of feel like things are very, very uncertain just across the industry in general when it comes to game development, costs, and really the future with live service and AI, and it seems kind of like a mess right now. And as we've said multiple times, and we'll probably continue to say, I don't think the worst is over yet when it comes to some of these layoffs or potential studio or maybe even publisher closing. So we'll see. We're just now about to be 2 months into 2024, and it's thousands and thousands of jobs already lost in the games industry. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Pokemon Presents that aired yesterday. It went for just about 13 minutes, and it was about 90% mobile games, but the one game that they did announce for the Switch, people were pretty excited for, which, let's start from the top here, with Terra Raid battle events for Scarlet and Violet. They have Mighty Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard. There you go. Pokemon collaboration event, or Pokemon Go collaboration event, I should say, with Pokemon Horizons. Pokemon Sleep's getting Raikou, and they also have some of the other legendary dogs that'll be dropped in, Entei, Suicune, those are coming later. Pokemon Masters EX Celebration event, there's login bonuses there. Pokemon Cafe Mix, there's Gimmighoul coins, there's new outfits. Pokemon Unite's gonna get new Pokemon, including Miraidon. There's the Pokemon TCG Pocket, which, you know what, the trading card game, you feel like it makes sense for the mobile phone, but the one that they've had there, it was like TCG Live, just hasn't been very good. It's not rated well on things like the Play Store. It seems very clunky, I guess. But in this case, this seems much more refined and streamlined, and they just basically showed people opening packs just about the whole time. They also talked about different battles, trading. The immersive card's probably the coolest feature I saw here, where you kind of go inside the artwork and look around it. They did say you get 2 booster packs per day for free. And then, of course, I'm sure you can give them all kinds of money for more booster packs, but it is coming out in 2024, so sometime this year. And then the big closeout was Pokemon Legends ZA. This is being developed by Game Freak, and it's taking place in the Kalos region. This is with Lumio City, so Pokemon X and Y, which definitely caught people off guard as they were going into this expecting Pokemon Black and White, something, maybe a remake or something there. And then they also teased Mega Evolution at the end. 2025 for this one, so no Pokemon released for 2024 holiday, nothing there. And it is going to be on the Switch, so people were wondering, is this going to be a cross-gen game for the next system? I don't think so. I think this is just a Switch game, and obviously, it might just work backwards compatible on the next system. And who knows, maybe they do push a patch so that it just runs better there. I do like the idea, though, of them continuing the Legends series because it was a very unique experience with Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I think they can do some really cool stuff here considering it's going to take place completely inside of the city. That's the part that I'm still unsure how that's going to look exactly, considering with Pokemon Legends Arceus, you would go out to different zones or really just fields, and that's how you would sort of explore and catch and battle different Pokemon. This all taking place inside of a city should at least be a unique experience, but I'm curious what the gameplay loop is going to look like there. So very, very interesting stuff, at least on that side, but the rest of it, I kind of understand why people are having mixed reactions around this Pokemon Presents, especially if you woke up extra early, maybe on the West Coast to see this. You're probably bored for like 10 or 11 minutes and then got really excited at the end, and then still didn't see any gameplay of a new Switch game that's not coming out, unfortunately, till 2025. So good stuff. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, give the Pokemon Presents a grade, coming in there seemingly at a C, then a B. F was the third leading vote getter there. All right, and then D, and then You know what? If you really enjoy some of the mobile games that they've done with the Pokemon Company, and then you're really excited about a new Legends game, yeah, I could see this being an A for you. But for me, I just don't really play in the mobile games. Legends is pretty cool, but we don't have gameplay there. So yeah, I think I'm turning in right at a C, like maybe a C minus, really. But if there was gameplay, or at least we had an idea as to what this Pokemon ZA was going to look like, then I'd be more inclined to bump it up at least a little bit. But hey, definitely a unique and interesting experience to look forward to in 2025. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from VoPyQ, saying Apple did release a console many years ago, and people didn't bat an eye. It was a market failure. Yeah, that was the Apple Bandai Pippin in 1996 or 97. Apple's a lot different now compared to the mid-90s. I mean, even later on, like at the turn of the century there, or in 2000, they were releasing those big blue and green iMacs for those things at the computer lab at school. Yeah, way different company now to where I feel like they could release a console and people would probably scoop it up. They were selling these Apple Vision things for $3,500 and it was like this big meme online, yes, but more people were buying that than I was expecting. At least I will say that. It seems like you put that Apple logo on it and it feels more premium, I guess. That's all it seems to take is an Apple logo. But yeah, I feel like they could probably push an $800 to $1,000 console and it would sell more than we would expect. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo going after Yuzu? Do you think they have any legitimate case here, or are they just trying to drain Yuzu of money through legal fees? And then also, what about Sony announcing 900 layoffs and studio closures, game cancellations? Then the Pokemon Presents. What'd you think of that entire show? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.